Hello and welcome to the final review, well, sort of Request Month 2017. Today we're taking a look at Ori and the Blind Forest for PC and Xbox One. What you're seeing here is the PC version, specifically the Definitive Edition. This review is coming to you courtesy of Wild Engineer, so thank you for sending me a copy of this to take a look at. This is a Metroidvania-inspired platformer by Moon Studios and published by Microsoft in March of 2015 for PC and Xbox One, and it later got a re-release as the Definitive Edition in 2016. And it generated quite a lot of hype leading up to its release, and after its release as well, because the reception was very positive for the most part. Which ultimately is going to lead to two things with regards to this review. First things first, I have to preface this review by saying I do not like platformers. I haven't liked platformers for a very long time. Most of the time I just find them incredibly boring because I played a crap ton of platformers back in the 90s and I just got incredibly sick of them. It was basically playing the same games over and over and over again with slightly different coats of paint, and basically nothing has really changed since the 90s as far as platformers go. Ori and the Blind Forest, contrary to what a lot of people will tell you, is no exception to this rule. The second point I have to make is that these are the awards that Ori and the Blind Forest won. Best Audio, Xbox Game of the Year at the Golden Joystick Awards. At the Game Awards 2015, Best Art Direction. At the British Academy Games Awards for 2016, Artistic Achievement. At the 2016 DICE Awards, Outstanding Achievement in Animation, Art Direction, Music Composition. In fact, as far as I'm aware, there was only one award that it actually won that was just related to it being a game. That should tell you a lot of what you need to know about Ori and the Blind Forest going into this review. So without further ado, let's go ahead and tear right into this thing and find out what exactly we're dealing with. Well, as far as presentation goes, let's just say there's a reason that it won awards for its art direction and music in particular. The artwork in this game is downright gorgeous, as is the animation. Incredibly smooth and fluid, it all has this really unique visual style that really works well for it. It's colorful, it's unique, and most importantly, it's incredibly charming. There are just so many moments throughout the game where you just have to sit back and take in all of the visuals, because they did an absolutely phenomenal job with this. And that extends over into the sound design as well. The soundtrack is excellent. It's all orchestral stuff, but it fits the game to a T, and it's great to boot. And even when you get into the lesser aspects of the sound design, the background noise, the voice work, which the voice work consists of a made-up language, and it's just kinda cheesy, but it's meant to be cheesy. It all goes together to give the game quite a lot of charm. And as far as spectacle goes, if you just want to sit back and watch and listen, then Ori and the Blind Forest is pretty much unparalleled in that particular field. There are a few games here and there that are on the same level, but they're very few and far between. And if nothing else, the developers deserve the utmost praise for the art direction and the sound design in general. They deserve the awards they got for those, because those are absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, where the game starts to fall apart are in the story and the gameplay. You play as Ori, a spirit who falls from the spirit tree and ends up getting adopted by some creature that raises Ori as her own. And right from the get-go, it is painfully obvious that they're trying to set this up like a Disney movie. What do I mean by that? Well, they show you all this heartwarming stuff that's early on, and then they just try to dash all of your hopes by killing off the character who raises Ori. They are constantly trying to tug at your heartstrings in incredibly obvious ways, and it makes it incredibly difficult to actually get attached to anything that's going on. At least it does if you're like me and you're completely burned out on Disney movies because they go for the cheap emotional shots. Obviously, your mileage is going to vary on that one. Regardless of how you feel about that, however, the story is very obviously derivative of other works. In particular, it's rather derivative of the Legend of Zelda games. You have a blue spirit that follows you around and gives you advice on everything. The story structure is for you to find 3 elements so you can restore the forest by returning them to the spirit tree. The spirit tree is a pretty clear analog to the Deku tree, except that it's much more important to the story than the Deku tree was. And even the other influences that it has are basically worn on its sleeve. That's not necessarily a problem, don't get me wrong, but it does make the game feel incredibly derivative. It does have its moments, don't get me wrong, but the vast majority of the game just has this feeling of deja vu, this been there, done that, bought the t-shirt feeling, like you've played so many other games that have done pretty much the same thing. Then something a bit original might show through the fog and you go, oh wait a minute, now it's not feeling quite as derivative, oh wait, no, back to being derivative. Don't get me wrong, the story's not bad, it just doesn't really do quite enough to distinguish itself from the things that influenced it. Like I said, you get a definite feeling of deja vu when you're playing this, and that's really hard to escape. especially when the gameplay reinforces that. It is a bog standard platformer when you really get down to it. And it's done in the Metroidvania style, which means that you do have some degree of free reign to go around the map as you please, but there's a definite linear path that you should be following based on what abilities you get at any given point. You start off with only a basic jump as an ability, and gradually get access to a basic attack as well as things like a double jump, an air dash, so on and so forth. And like just about any game in that genre, you use all of these abilities to traverse the environment, solve puzzles, to attack enemies and defeat enemies, and have occasional boss fights. As you continue to progress throughout the game, not only are you given access to new abilities, but you gradually quote-unquote level up by getting various ability points that you can then spend to upgrade your various abilities. Let's say you want to use your charge flame a lot more and you just don't have enough energy. Well, you can go into the ability tree and select the upgrade to give you a half reduction on the cost of the charge flame. The caveats there are that you A, have to actually have the ability to be able to upgrade it, and B, the upgrade trees are linear, so you have to have unlocked the previous upgrade to get to the next one. This gets pretty tedious after a while, but not quite so tedious as the save system. You see, there are save points scattered throughout the levels that you can go up to and press X on the Xbox pad, and it will save your game and replenish your health and energy. If you can't make it to a save point, however, because they're actually pretty few and far between, then you might use a soul link. Now, this is an ability you get where you can basically create a mini save point. You can do this on any ground as long as it is not unstable and as long as you don't have any enemies nearby. Not only does this allow you to save your game instantly whenever you set it down, but you also get to upgrade your abilities through the ability trees by going in through the soul link. Thing is that soul links have a cooldown and they have an energy requirement, so you have to use them sparingly, especially since that uses up energy that you could then use to actually open doors that will let you get to the next areas of the game and possibly a save point. But here's the thing, if you're not really good at platformers, you're probably going to be using the soul links a lot more because you're going to save right before you do something that requires a lot of precision. And there are quite a few obstacles throughout the course of the game that will require you to be pretty precise. This can lead to it being a very frustrating experience where you sit there and you save and then you're like, well crap, now I have to go backtracking to actually find energy again. Sure, it's a mild annoyance more than anything else, but it is still an annoyance. But what goes from being annoying to downright infuriating at times is if you forgot to save. I've run into quite a few instances where I forgot to save before I did some kind of jump and then I had to go all the way back to my original save point, thus losing several minutes of work at a time. You may think that sounds ridiculous to get annoyed about or even outright mad about, but keep in mind, this is a game in a genre I don't even like very much. And one of the big reasons for that is constant trial and error. If I'm having to constantly repeat something over and over and over again because I just didn't time it just right, then that starts to get on my nerves. And that's regardless of whether it's a platformer or an adventure game or a first-person shooter or whatever it may well be. But it's especially true in the case of platformers because that's pretty much all they are. Ori and the Blind Forest is no exception there. There are tons of areas throughout the game where it requires you to be very precise with your jumps, and if you are just a bare few pixels off, then, well, guess what? You gotta start the whole thing over again. For someone who's into platformers, that might be mildly frustrating. For someone like me who doesn't like platformers, that gets very irritating because I feel like I'm wasting my time. And that was really the general consensus I got when I was playing Ori. It's not a bad game as a platformer. It's just average. Sure, you do get a couple of cool abilities here and there. I mean, one of them allows you to jump off of projectiles. I mean, that's pretty cool. But other than things like that, I have no real investment in a game like this. I have played an absolute crap ton of platformers over the years, and it seems like they just keep flooding the market with them. I am just sick of seeing platformers upon platformers at this point, and Ori and the Blind Forest doesn't do enough to differentiate itself from the rest of the pack other than its artwork and sound design. And if all you want is a platformer that has really, really nice visuals and sound, then this will definitely suit your needs for that. But other than that, it's just another Metroidvania-inspired platformer that takes after the indie trends. Does that make it a bad game? No, not at all. It's definitely a solid enough platformer if that's your thing. The problem is that that has to be your thing for you to get that much out of it. And quite frankly, as nice as the visuals and sound are, they really don't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. What keeps people coming back to video games is story and gameplay. And Ori doesn't really have either of those. The gameplay is pretty average as far as modern platformers go, and the story is extremely derivative and generally not all that great. And ultimately, I can't bring myself to give this thing anything higher than a 3 out of 5. Like I said, it is an average platformer as far as its gameplay goes. It's not bad, it's not particularly great. It's just the visuals and sounds set it apart from other things, and that's just not enough. Obviously, I can recommend it to platformer fans because they'll be able to enjoy the living crap out of it anyway, but for your average person, I would say if you're going to pick this up, pick it up when it's on sale. Because as far as I'm concerned, what really matters here, the story and the gameplay, just don't justify full price. I hope you all enjoyed Request Month this year. I know I had some issues keeping to the schedule because of various delays and such like that, but the normal review schedule resumes this coming Saturday, so stay tuned for that, and I'll catch you all in later videos. Thanks for watching.